So in this lesson, we're going to talk about how to brief an agency or a freelancer. So this is really where we're taking like the science of your brand strategy and turning that into art, bringing that to life with the help of an agency or a freelancer. And in the coming videos, I will show you more precisely how you can use certain online platforms to find talent and to brief them. But before we do that, it's really important that you understand like how should you brief them? Because the thing is like if you're not able to educate them properly on what it really is that you want, and you're not able to kind of instruct them in the right way on what it is that you want them to create, then it doesn't really matter how good of a designer that you're working with or a good of a creative that you're working with. You know, they won't be able to deliver what you expect, clearly, right? So it's really important that we get this right. And this is really a critical point in this branding process as we kind of transition from your brand strategy into visual executions when you work with agencies. And, trust me on this one, because I've been on both sides. As you know, I do run an agency myself, so I do receive a lot of briefs that can vary a lot in quality. And, when you get the poor brief, it's just really difficult to do something good with that, right? And also on the other, I've been on the other side as well. I've worked for, big companies working with some of the world's biggest agencies and like really talented creatives, as well as with freelancers and so on that I work with daily. Using, on the Salon business and in other projects, I work with like small freelancers and so on. So I have quite a bit of experience when it comes to this briefing process, and it is a really critical component. If we don't get that right when we set off the project, that's going to cost us money. It's going to cost us time investment in the long run. So it's really important that we get that right, because in the end, it's like this is the document that you're going to pass to the creative when you start working, and this is also the document that they will be held accountable for in the end. So if you're not getting the quality work back that you expected, you're not getting all the deliverables you said you wanted, or they're not executing the stuff in line with your brand as you want. If you have a well-defined brief, that's very easy to go back to that document and to say, this is what we agreed at the start of the project, and this is what I'm seeing, this doesn't line up. And it's easier in that way to provide feedback because you have an agreement from start. Whereas if you're not clear in that brief, then it becomes like a subjective discussion on like, yeah, but I thought you wanted this and I thought you wanted that. And then, suddenly they will want to charge you more for the work, for the rework and so on, which is not like a good place to be. So if you're very clear up front, you will get a better end result that is more in line with your expectation, but also it will be easier to manage any like conflicts down the line when working with agencies, since you all had an agreement from start. And what you will see when we dive into the platforms that I recommend you use if you're going to find talent online, also these platforms, they already like support this, and they do have their own briefing process. They do have templates and stuff that they want you to fill out in order to make sure that the creative on the other side really understands what it is that you want to get out. So obviously they understand the importance of this because it's their job to make sure that you get quality work and that you're happy with what you're asking for, and also that the designers and creatives working on the other side, that they are able to deliver on what they want. So obviously they want to drive up the satisfaction of both parties on these platforms, and that's why they actually invest quite a bit in making sure that that briefing process is clear. So, but independently, if you're working with these online platforms, or maybe you're just briefing a local agency, what I want to do is to walk you through a number of things that I think you should have in your brief. So I'll take you through those. I think it's 12 things in total. I will include it also in the description below the video, so you can have that there. And that's quite a lot of things, right? 12 things. So let me just walk you through what it is. As a general principle, what I would say is also like, depending on who you work with, like if you're working with a very talented creative, it could be beneficial for you to keep your brief on a slightly higher level and not be so directive, because then you allow freedom for the creative to, go and to do what they do best and bring back great work for you, things that you probably couldn't even imagine that could be done before you pass the brief. Whereas if you work with like a budget designer or something, then it might be helpful to be a bit more precise when you brief, so that you really know what you get. because then you cannot maybe rely to the same extent that they have the power and the creative minds to really to bring that to life. So that's kind of like a balance on like how precise I would be in the brief. I would always be very clear on the big picture of what you want to get out of it, right? So that you're both on the same page. But what I'm saying is just like you can be a little bit more specific and directive with like budget freelancers and so on if that's who you're working with. But anyway, let's go through those 12 points that I do recommend that you include. So I would always start with a bit of background. And in your background, you will cover a lot of like your brand strategy. But even before we go into those specifics, I would start with just a more general background statement to who you are, like who your business is and like what you do, just so that they kind of have a context in mind of what you're about. For that background statement, I wouldn't like use a specific format, just write it in your regular words, how you would explain to someone what your business is about, because in the end that's what you want to achieve there, is just to give them a little bit of context before they start working. Then I would go a little bit more specific in that background and cover specific things that you already have in your brand strategy. So that would be like your proposition. So really, what is it that you offer and how is that different? I would include your target client. So it's important that the designer or creative that you're working with, have a good idea of really like the stuff that they're creating, who should that resonate with. So you should have done some work on this already as we went through the brand strategy, and hopefully you have a good description of who that target client is. That would be very helpful here, so that they can design what they're going to deliver with that person in mind. The other thing I would include is your positioning. So like, how are you really different versus other in your area, so that they understand what are the things like in this communication or in this thing that they're creating for you, like what are the things they should push that are important, that is really what makes you stand out versus other businesses in your area. I would include your brand's character. So your brand's character, as you know, the personality and style of your brand should really come across in all your touch points, right? So maybe they, as part of the project that you're briefing, they need to write some copy. The brand character will help them with the tone of voice to use, or, the visual expression and visual language they should use, so that follows your brand character. So that's important that you have that in your brief. Also, if you have some specific brand assets, that could be like graphics, specific like graphical components that you want to use. There could be like patterns and so on, like you saw in some previous examples when we went through the brand identity. Like, make sure to pause that with the brief so that they can also, like, as it makes sense, include that also in this specific execution. And then of course the other part that you need to include is any other information that is needed in order for them to complete the project. So that depends obviously on what you're briefing. Maybe this is a very specific execution, you want to brief a price list design or something, then of course they need to have your price list in order to kind of incorporate that into the new design that they're creating. Or if it's business cards, they need to know your address details and so on. I mean, so that's obvious. Make sure to pass that information that they need in order to complete the work. So that would kind of be the overall like background, right, to your business and the stuff they need to, create and deliver a successful project. So the next part I would include is, which is very important, is really the goal of this project. Like, what is it that you want to achieve? So this could either be like a very specific goal, that is like when this goal is achieved, that's when this project is successful. Or it could be vaguer, so it could also be a problem that you want to overcome. If you don't yet know exactly what that should look like in terms of a specific goal, it's more of a problem that you give them. I think for the process here and, what we're talking about here, which is about creating your brand and your brand identity, you will be clear on what's the goal that you want to achieve. But obviously you can use this briefing process for anything that you want to create, really, right? So it could be used for, briefing a marketing agency on like what activities should you use. So in that case, you might not know exactly what is the exact goal, what is it exactly that you want them to deliver to you, but all you know is that you have a problem. And in that case, you would pass that problem to them. So for example, that could be, let's say you run a hair salon, you have a clientele consisting of women primarily, and you want to attract men to your business as well. then you could brief a marketing agency on that problem. Like, I want to get more men into my salon than what I do today. And the goal, what they would deliver is in the end like marketing activities that you could do in order to better attract men, for example. Now, as I said, like for the purpose of this course, we're going to focus on like your brand identity. You will most likely not be briefing on a problem right now. You will be briefing on a specific goal. So most likely that could be something like, you want to brief an agency or a freelancer on your brand identity. So what you want to get back is a like brand identity pack. You want to get like guidance on how your brand should be executed. You want to have like your logo type design and so on, all that in a brand identity pack. So the deliverable is much more concrete. Like it's, the goal that you want to achieve is to get that brand identity pack back, and that should be in line with your brand strategy. When you get that, that means that the project is successful. Okay, so I just wanted to kind of raise that like example that you can use this briefing process for different things. It's not necessarily a very specific goal, but I think for now it's going to be a specific goal for what you want to create when it comes to your brand identity. So when you have your goal defined, the next thing I would include are the specific deliverables for that. So if we go back to the example of if you're briefing a brand identity pack or a visual identity for your salon or spa, then you would list like what are the specific deliverables that should go into that. So for example, you want to have a logo type design as part of that, and you want that logo type design to be delivered in like high resolution files that you can then take and use on all the attachments that you want. Maybe you want to have a business card design as part of that you can also just take and use directly from that. And you want to have like some examples of executions, how you could use that brand identity in your social media, on your website, and so on. So that you really like get quite concrete and specify like, this is what I expect. This is the goal that I want you to deliver. And these are the specific deliverables that I expect that you bring together with that. Okay. So this is a very important part, like the whole goal and deliverables. I would spend some time to really make sure you nail that down, because in the end, that's what they will be held accountable for. And sometimes if we're not clear on that, there could be a misunderstanding, Let's take another example. I mean, you could, for example, brief an architect agency for an interior design project, right? So let's say you wanted to do that. So like, what are you really expecting here? Are you expecting them to actually come in and to redo the design of your salon? Or is what you're expecting is that like a PDF document with like how you should be decorating your salon so you can take and do that yourself? Or like, what is it really like that you're expecting from this project? Make sure you're really crisp on that to avoid any confusion and you think that you have bought something that the agency or freelancer didn't think, basically, and then you avoid issues down the line. Okay, so that's the goals, the deliverables. After that, I would include the budget. So, in order to achieve that goal, get those deliverables, how much are you ready to pay for that? Should include your budget. I would also recommend you include a timeline if there's any milestones on the way. Also, just to be clear up front, so you're not sitting there and like, 3 weeks have passed, I haven't heard anything. When should I get this? And now suddenly you really need it and so on. So that you're kind of upfront with the timings and when, milestones are, if like certain things should be delivered at a certain time. Include that in the brief, because then also the designer or creative freelancer agency can also, react to that in the beginning to avoid like bad surprises down the line when you think you would have something and, it's not ready yet. So make sure you include that from start. And then the last point that can also help you is to include some likes and dislikes in the brief. So what I mean with that is like concrete examples of like what it is that you like or don't like. So we will look at how you're going to use some of the platforms, and I'll also show you like how you can build mood boards, find inspiration, and so on. So this can be very helpful in order to make sure that the creative is really going in the direction that you want. you know, coming back to like, depending on who you're working with here, I would be a little bit careful to be too precise. If you're working with someone that is really talented, have a really strong portfolio, and you know they can really deliver on what you want, I would be a little bit like, maybe I wouldn't include any examples, because the risk is that, like, if you say like, this is the kind of thing that I like, because that's what you have in your head right now, the chances are that the person that you're working with, you know, is better than you. Sorry, but like they can see things you cannot see. And if you have like your mindset already and you're including very specific examples, then you will get those very specific examples, but maybe you actually missed out on something that they could have brought you if you would have been like a little bit less specific in that brief in terms of what you want, right? You know, I would use this in a way like, if I'm working with someone who is like on a budget and, you know, doesn't have that much experience, I would be very precise, like, these are exact examples of what I want. I just want like variations of that. Please go do. If someone is very good, I would probably not even include any examples unless I know that there's like some common pitfalls here. Like maybe, you know, you're running a certain type of salon. Maybe you're in a specific niche. You have a specific positioning where you know that it's quite easy to go certain way. I don't know, maybe you run a barbershop, and like what most people would associate with that barbershop is kind of, with a barbershop concept, is this like, you know, American style barber kind of thing. And that's not what you want. You want more of a like Italian style barber, or you want, I don't know, like a modern, more modern, and not the like vintage look, or, you know, you kind of know that there's like certain connotations with what you're briefing, where the, you know, direction could go if you're not being clear. Then I would really include like some don'ts, like, this is the direction I don't want us to go in, but I want us to think like more in a like more modern way and not in a vintage way in that case, for example. So you know, that's how I would use those likes and dislikes, which can really help direct, but also hinder some of the creativity. So be a little bit careful there. Yes, so that's what you should include in your brief. And again, this is really where we're turning that science, like, you know, your brand strategy, into that art. So this is important, you know, spend some time here so you kind of get that right from start, to make sure that you kind of set this off in the right direction. You know, that will help you a lot, not only because you will get better work, but also to avoid these kind of weird discussions that can come up when people weren't really clear on what was expected. So that's it for this lesson. And I think this is one of those lessons that maybe you want to come back to later. So, you know, if you're just processing the course right now, kind of learning how to brief an agency, and we'll soon also look at how to feedback agencies. You know, this maybe is not like relevant to you exactly now, but maybe this is something that it's good to come back to and look through, like, what should I include in the brief, kind of when you're getting to that point when you really should be doing your brief as well. So obviously you have this lesson available to come back to when the time is right. Okay, so that's it for this one, and I'll see you in the next video.